So I decided to make a stream today and talk about what happened yesterday. So, in case somebody missed, there was a major showdown happening on Levitov Chess YouTube channel, which is one of the most prominent Russian language chess channels. I mean, it's a great channel. I've learned from it a lot of great things, including some of the source material, source information for my previous bootcamp, the Karakhan, using mainly the ideas as suggested by Alexander Ryazantsev. And they've been posing themselves as the main source of information for the Russian-speaking community when it comes to chess, right? So it is run by Ilya Levitov, and yeah, yesterday something happened because it was already pretty late, I think. I mean, maybe not really so late. It was something like 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. European time, and suddenly I got a notification that Levitov Chess has released something, and initially I thought it's a video, you know, one of those videos, one of those interviews. Recently, obviously, they've been releasing a lot of good stuff, and I clicked on it, and I realized it's a live interview. And what was happening in this live interview was that Ilya Levitov was about to interview Daniel Naroditsky in Russian language, right? So of course I went to the Twitter and I tweeted, guys, check it out, right? I think this is going to be fun stuff. So all of this is happening live, and normally these live interviews we get some revelations, but in the beginning it was a bit disappointment because let me play you some of the very start. I will have maybe difficulties to find exact timestamps because unfortunately this video has no timestamps. So before, I mean, obviously I watched the entire thing with some very small gaps, so I maybe missed a couple of things. But I wrote down some of the key moments to explain what happened. And of course, I mean, yesterday, maybe it was after my tweet or Dina saw it herself, she decided to run a translation stream on her Twitch and YouTube channels, directly translating everything that was said in this coverage so that also the English-speaking audience can understand. So when it comes to my Russian language knowledge, it's not really a secret that it's my second, or right now it's the third language. I speak it fluently. I've known it since my childhood. Actually, that was the second language I learned before the English language. And as it happens, in the past years, I've been practicing the English language quite a bit. So I think it's fair to say that English language right now is my second language. I mean, Latvian language is my native language. I'm born Latvian. But the Russian language is something where I can communicate very, very clearly. Maybe my grammar is not really perfect at some times, and I don't really know some of the perhaps more advanced Russian words, but I understand like 99% they're saying. So the interview started, maybe I'm just gonna play it, so you'll see what it was. I hope to...
Это вообще... Я вообще 2.15, я если встал, это уже чудо. Ну, Илья... Спасибо всем. Начну с пословицы.
You can hear this is definitely Danya speaking in Russian language. And in case somebody was surprised, Danya's... actually, I'm not entirely sure if he was born Russian. I think he was born Russian, then he moved to the United States, or his native language is English and one of his parents is Russian. I don't really know. But he definitely speaks perfect Russian language, so maybe to some of the people this is surprising. By the way, when Danya was in Riga, whichever year it was, 2016, 2017, 17, maybe, I don't know. He was playing in Riga Technical University Open, and I played against Danya in the final round. I think we chat a bit in the Russian language. Yeah, so I knew that he is American. I was a bit surprised that he speaks Russian. And yeah, he was giving an interview in the Russian, so we can just listen how it sounds. I'm sure most of you are not going to understand it, but here we go.
Одного американского сатирика. Жизнь — это то, что происходит, когда мы заняты составлением планов. То есть я ничего не предвещало этой ситуации. Я очень надеялся все эти месяцы.
Maybe I can turn on the CC. Yeah, where is it? Just a second. Subtitles. Where can I set the language? I'm not entirely sure. Does anybody know? I need to choose the English. Where do I choose the English language? I have no idea where to choose it. Actually, I'm kind of unprepared when it comes to this. This is obviously in Latvian language. Subtitle. There it is. There it is. There it is. Options. Russian language.
Месяца, что вернусь к тебе.
Yeah, this is Russian subtitles. Automatic to English. All right. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. Right. So all of you can play back.
Тебе в эфир, но не знал, что это будет при таких обстоятельствах. Но я только за. Жизнь — это игра, и я готов сделать следующий ход.
All right. So that's what he said in the very beginning. And but I was quite disappointed at the very beginning because as it happened, it was only Danya against Ilya Levitov, and there was no Kramnik. This was the plan. And I'm not gonna again pinpoint a moment when this was discussed. This was something. It was ongoing for about 45 minutes, and I think somewhere early, Levitov said that he had invited Kramnik to join the discussion, and Danya had turned it down, which is of course perfectly understandable to him because he felt that it's not going to be a real discussion, that it's going to be one person's monologue, and you're going to see how later it turned out. So the plan was that Danya is going to, at least that's what I understand it. Obviously, I was not even close to anywhere this. I was just a listener like everybody else. And the way I understand it, the plan was that Danya is going to talk to the huge Russian community. As you can see, Levitov Chess has 100,000 followers of mostly Russian-speaking members of the community. It is well respected, so I think he made a very bold and correct choice by explaining his position, because Vladimir Kramnik is a true chess legend in the Russian chess community, and everything he says for the Russian community, very often they don't question it, right? And that's why Danya felt that he has to do this. I'm pretty sure that he is at the moment simply disgusted that he has to prove. But again, I think that he's not talking mainly to Kramnik. He's speaking to this audience, and so that they can hear what is his opinion. So they were chit-chatting here and there, and it was one thing that I noticed quite early. So this was happening in 45 minutes, that Levitov was unusually quite hostile towards Danya. I mean, I could feel it, right? Because normally I think that Levitov is more or less, he's a neutral person, but at least in the very beginning, he was like very aggressively asking those questions. And there was a moment when he said, Danya, we agreed that before this interview, we are going to talk like real men. In Russian, that would be pomushki. We're going to talk pomushki, and no BS, but let's just talk what it is. And Danya said, sure, yeah, let's do it. But I think that mainly Danya was simply too nice because I think he's just very, very nice and a humble person, because if I was there and I would get that kind of direction, that kind of discussion directed at me, I probably would have exploded at some point, because I think I would take it incredibly personally. So yeah, I don't think I would be able to endure it. I would probably have a red face and everything, and I would start a shout at some point, just because I just probably would be unable to handle the pressure. So huge respect for Danya that he was able to endure it. Although at the very beginning you could see that he was incredibly uncomfortable. And there was this one moment, so we can skip the first 40 minutes or so. Thank you for the pawns, appreciate it. We can skip the first 45 minutes. They chit-chat a bit. They talked about how it all started. Are the accusations correct or not? I don't really want to go through the full transcript, but let's go to the first interesting moment at, I think it was about here, 45:15, and now you can listen to what Levitov says. Just a second.
В одном дыхании говорит, что я читер, это бескоризненное доказательство моего морального банкротства. Я читер из-за этого момента, но сам же пишет
Wait, I think it's a bit later, just a second, but let's just get past this.
В комментарии, что гнусный там Гальченко, как ты смеешь выявлять этот инцидент?
Oh yeah, I mean, the story about Galchenko is a separate story. That's the guy. I think he's an international master from the Russian community who was under suspicion by Kramnik.
Да, я это сделал, но это было для экспериментальных причин. Но вот когда создается такой двойной стандарт, то опять-таки, чтобы вернуться к моему первоначальному тезису, невозможно иметь добросовестный диалог вообще. Потому что человек не действует добросовестно.
Oh wait, I think it's a bit later. Just a second.
По-моему, знаю.
Дина, ну вы нам расскажите, там будет, так сказать, в перерыве между основными вопросами, хочется еще задать...
Это она.
Уважаемый.
So there was Dina Belenkai in the chat at the very beginning, and Levitov noticed this, and he asked Daniel to verify if that's indeed Dina in the chat, and Daniel said that he's not sure because nowadays everybody can pretend to be somebody in the chat, but later he checked it and he said, yeah, that's her. And Levitov said, I want to ask Dina some questions.
Да? Дина, ну вы нам расскажите, там будет момент у вас, вы нам напишите, расскажите, вот вы слухи распространяете про Яна Непомнящего, вот это вы точно уверены в том, что вы делаете? Или это у вас... Что-то вы попутали, может быть, где-то что-то услышали не то. Такое опасное.
So he's referring to Dina's, I think this was a chat message about Jan Nepomniachtchi talking about Hikaru supposedly cheating in 2022 candidates. Again, this is just not me. This is what Dina overheard. And anyway, that was the question from Levitov towards... Dina, and he wanted to have her in the studio, ask some questions, etc. I mean, it's not really related to this discussion, but I thought that was a pretty interesting twist. I believe that Dina definitely is not gossiping, and I'm pretty sure she got information from somewhere, but I thought that's pretty interesting. And Levitov basically said that's a very, very serious thing. There could be like major repercussions that affect the top 10. Yeah, that was essentially the agenda.
Тема, кстати, что Ян где-то кому-то когда-то что-то якобы сказал, что он подозревает Хикару Накамуру в нечестной игре. Только это серьезное дело, это может вызвать какой-то переполох у нас в мировой десятке, друзья. Так что...
У нас его не хватает.
Yeah, that's what he said. And let's move on a bit to this moment. Just a second, I think it was a bit later about here.
Короче,
ну что, мы будем подключать Борисовича или нет? Ты мне скажешь, Даня.
There you go. I think there was I think I missed there was an earlier suggestion by Levitov who said, shall we connect Kramnik to the discussion? Although they had agreed that it's not going to happen before the interview. As far as I understand it, this was not part of the agreement. And we could see, you can see there's Kramnik in the chat who is writing to Danya in the Russian language, come on, Danya, confirm. I'm not really sure what he's asking to confirm. And I believe that Kramnik was also texting to Levitov at the same time when he was willing to jump in. And I don't really know what happened here, but it seems that Danya decided to sort of give up. He was like, okay, since we are here, let's do this. But my impression was that originally this was not the plan. And Danya was not ready to talk with Kramnik. And maybe it was about here or some moments before where you could feel that he was definitely very uncomfortable about this, at least in the very beginning, but he just sort of let it fly. Okay, fine, whatever, since we're here, let's do this. And we'll see how it turned out. So Kramnik connected. It was about some minutes later. There we go, about here.
Это
Ой, да,
правда, да.
Там что все время идет, там чемпионат Америки, я вообще не следил. После Кристофера Ю я уже забил на него. Вообще, какой чемпионат Америки?
А я слежу за... Мне все, которые... А мы с ней не знакомы,
Just a
наверное, с
second,
Диной.
I'm
Не
not
знаю, может,
really
знакомы.
sure. Wait,
Дина, мы с вами знакомы
It's a bit
или нет,
later.
дорогая моя? Ну что же вы...
Я хотел с самого начала, но не все хотели, я так понимаю.
all right, and now the next thing. Vladimir Kramnik connects. And he is ready to join the discussion. I think it's great. I think it's great if you had agreed to do it beforehand. Not like put Danya in a position like, we're going to connect Kramnik. Do you mind, right? Even though they agreed they're not going to do it. And Danya's like, fine, fine. Even though I didn't agree to this. I might be wrong, but I think this was the agreement before. And now Kramnik connects. And something very strange happens. He has no camera on. Right? So he has not switched on the camera for the discussion, and it remains switched off for the remaining of the interview. I mean, I don't know about you, but I always feel that this is a very uneven discussion. I mean, it's like we're talking, I'm standing and you're sitting, right? We do not have an equal positioning, right? Because it feels that the person who is standing is like dictating terms to you, and you are sitting. I mean, you can agree. So I think it's always there should be the discussion. Whenever you're having a debate with somebody, it should be on equal terms. So if you're sitting, we're sitting. If you're standing, we're standing. So if we have cameras on, we have cameras on. If we have cameras off, we have cameras off, right? So, I mean, maybe to somebody would be like, what does it matter? I mean, the most important thing is the discussion, but I think that you are also behaving a bit more differently when you have the camera switched on, when you have it switched off. Don't you agree? Right? I think it's much easier for people to talk when the camera is off. And I think since he is the one who is asking the questions, there should be camera on, especially since this was like kind of prepared. I mean, and I think that this kind of thing is like a bit unacceptable. And what I slightly regret is that Danya did not press on this. He should have been more strict. It's like, wait, what's going on, right? I mean, why are you not switching on the camera? Let me see your face, right? I mean, you're talking to me. You are saying bad things to me. Let me just see you, right? And by the way, this is something I've been doing with my students whenever I'm having private lessons. I always say to the students, I want to see your face, right? Because I don't want to talk with the wall. And maybe I've been already talking for 3-4 minutes, and my partner in the debate is not even there. Maybe he's disconnected or something, right? So I think I need to have some information coming back from you, right? So, I mean, they could, of course, say there were some technical problems, but since he knows how to record YouTube videos, clearly, and has made, I didn't check the number, you have to forgive me, but I think it was something like 7 videos. I think this is the number that Levitov himself brought up in the discussion. I think this is just not good, so Danya should have pressed on it. But again, like I already said, he's simply too nice And he tried to keep the atmosphere very casual, and he was smiling. And I just admire him how he can do this, right, under this incredible stress. All right, and now they were talking about some stuff, and let's move on to one of the first topics they were talking about. That was the moment number, I think it was about here. Let me try to find it. One of the first discussion was that they were talking about this unfortunate incident when Adanya was doing the speed run. I mean, you remember this detail, right? So this is one of the most important parts of the not accusation, because I mean, throughout the entire interview, Vladimir says that he's not accusing. He's asking questions. I mean, okay, whatever. But so from the very beginning, Levitov said that this is done so that Danya doesn't essentially sue him. Right? That's the only reason, and that's why Kramnik is navigating very carefully what he says. I don't really know that would hold on the court of law, to be honest, but okay, fine, whatever, right? And they started to talk about this unfortunate episode when Danya was doing a speed run, and apparently during one of those videos that is available on his YouTube channel, he said the engine suggests this move after in a position he was up a queen, and that was like a golden moment for Vladimir, right? Because he used this moment as one of his most important points. Is that how come that you are having a switched on engine during a speedrun game? So in case you don't know this real story, Danya was making a speedrun with no rating, so the rating would be refunded after it is played, and since already was up a queen, he had switched on an engine while the opponent was waiting. He was like stalling, and Danya had switched on an engine on another monitor to check the opening the first 8 moves. So he checked on the engine, he saw the evaluation because he was curious what's happening in this opening, and then he said to the audience, he said, the engine says this. And here we go. I mean, a lot of accusations, or not accusations, started from this very moment when Danya said these very unfortunate words, the engine says. And they were discussing this, how quickly it is to turn on the engine. And Kramnik said, you could not do it in 20 seconds. You definitely had the engine running at all times. This is one of his main points of not accusation. The main points of questions. I mean, the entire setup is so ridiculous. I don't even want to talk about it, but clearly it's an accusation. So, and then they were discussing this, and Danya was showing how it can be done. Maybe I can play it.
В этом.
Ну да, 3 секунды.
Но он загружает все-таки определенное время.
Могу поделиться экраном, показать прямо сейчас.
Нет, меня больше смущало, что меня смутило, что ты в момент, когда ты говорил ходы, ты смотрел вообще на другой монитор, не на тот, на котором ты заводил ходы. Вот это я не понял этого. Потому что совершенно четко видно в этом моменте, что когда ты говоришь ходы, что вот сейчас я покажу, вот очень интересный вариант, и ты смотришь на другой монитор, просто в другую сторону.
Yeah, so this was one of the major discussions in the very first part of the interview. And as Danya explained, he already had opened a chess space before because he was doing educational stream, and I believe him. I mean, because of course, when you have 2 monitors and you're explaining things, guys, if you're serious, do you really think he needs an engine to play against 1100 player? So I definitely believe him, right? But I think that this entire thing was so silly. It was so stupid. And Danya felt incredibly uncomfortable about this fact. So you could see it from the very beginning, and that's why even I read some comments in the chat by some very respectable grandmaster. They said, yeah, it's not a great explanation, but I think it's my opinion. I think that Daniel knows he made a mistake, because technically this is violating rules. And as later he said, he received an official warning from chess.com, and he said, okay, this is never going to happen, right? And that's it. By the way, it was very interesting that that Kramnik did not press on this too much. He did not press even on this on the fact too much that Danya apparently, while an ongoing speedrun game after being up a queen, he had switched on an engine. He had no real issues, but his point was that if you are using engine right now, maybe you are using it in more than one game. So you see the logic, right? And yeah, Danya was very uncomfortable with this question. And then at some point, it kind of settled down, and they moved on to the next thing. Because now this is the thing I don't really understand, and for some part when I was watching this interview, it just felt that it's like it's a bad sitcom. You know, because it was getting really so absurd at some points. Like, you're going to see it right now. So Danya literally shows his streaming setup, and Kramnik is double checking. Aha, I see, I got it, right? So that was really ridiculous to me. And by the way, this is the thing that Levitov is going to bring up to Kramnik a bit later. Why are we even doing this, right? So let me just show you this. When there's a discussion of Danya's setup, I think it's about here.
Потому что, это все можно, но это как бы надо искать.
Владимир
и так
Борисович,
далее.
но вы говорите, что пару процентов вероятности, что это технически возможно. Я показываю, что это технически возможно, но вы можете хотя бы взять назад то, что это больше вероятность.
So again, the point here is that Danya shows. He says, I'm about to show you my setup. I will make an experiment, and I'm going to show you my setup where I have positioned the laptop, where I have positioned the monitors. Kramnik quite doesn't want to do it, but Danya says, okay, let's do it. Since you asked it, let me show you.
3%.
Я говорил, во-первых, 5%, во-вторых, как бы это зависит от того, какой сетап.
Сейчас. Я пытаюсь, секундочку,
надо, чтобы было все видно, вся картина, да, если
так,
можно.
Значит, Илья, я выключу мою камеру и включу вебкэм.
I need to see everything. Yeah, so like he needs to see everything.
То есть вы меня не будете видеть, но вы будете видеть экраны. Постараюсь. Так, Logitech. Не знаю, что сейчас будет видно. Надеюсь, что ничего...
Ничего компрометирующего?
Компрометирующего не будет, да? Не думаю. Я думаю, там движок мы выключим. Секундочку. Посмотрим, что вы видите.
You know, I was watching this, and I just could not believe that they're doing this. I mean, is this serious? Do you really have to, like, physically turn the camera and you have to show right now my streaming setup? I mean, what exactly it's gonna prove? What is it gonna prove, right? I mean, you're gonna see there's a laptop, you're gonna see there's a external monitor. So what do you want to see there, right? But okay, fine, they did this, and yeah, so it continues. And when was this? I think it was about here. Maybe before. Yeah, at this moment, Kramnik says, I believe you have 3 monitors. So they were analyzing his eyesight. I think it was about here. Let me find it. Just a second.
За 20 секунд примерно.
Дальше.
Oh yeah, so they're still discussing these 20 seconds, that it's literally impossible for Danya in 20 seconds to input this game from the speedrun on a chess page window and switch on an engine. Kramnik would not believe it, and Danya demonstrated it. He said, I just did it. And then he asked for Levitov to confirm if indeed this was done in 20 seconds. Levitov laughed it off. He said, no, I didn't really set up the timer. I also didn't do it, but I think it was maybe 15-20 seconds, right? It's not really that difficult. I mean, if you really want, after this stream, after I'm going to show you the highlights of this interview, I can make a demonstration. If you have a chess page open, how quickly it is to set up 8 moves and switch on the default engine. I mean, it doesn't even require 20 seconds. So again, that was a huge argument that 20 seconds, it's impossible, you need to do more. Then Danya said, I mean, come on, I literally can switch on the engine like in a couple of seconds. Kramnik would disagree, it's impossible to do it in a couple of seconds. Fine. And right now they're discussing the eyesight of Danya, and this is where it comes to the next subtopic. Does Danya have 3 monitors?
Да, но сейчас это просто твое видео, Володь, ты здесь много... Вот.
6:51, вот мой редактор обрезал
Чуть-чуть
эти 20
дальше.
секунд.
Да, чуть-чуть дальше. Чуть-чуть.
Двигаемся
Да,
по часовой стрелке.
да. Я просто плохо вижу.
Ну, там просто это твой эфир, это не Даня,
это мой эфир, я понял, я останавливаю здесь. Нет, надо чуть-чуть еще дальше.
Я кручу. До какого момента?
Вот. Это не монитор, никак не монитор.
Yeah, you see, by the way, this is a very important moment. Again, one of the main arguments for Vladimir, he looks at the eyesight of Danya. And his argument is, Danya is looking at the 3rd monitor. And now they're discussing this right now. But wait, why this is relevant? We're going to talk about this a bit later. But now the discussion about is Danya's eyesight, and that Danya is not truthful, that he has not 2 monitors, but he has 3 monitors.
Монитор. И вот так Даня рассказывает ходы. Ну вот этот взгляд не на монитор.
Подожди, я смотрю в какую сторону? Я смотрю вправо, я смотрю на
чесспейс. Но это не на монитор, очевидно. Нет, ну это же видно. Монитор стоит напротив тебя, чуть-чуть вправо. Это взгляд в другую сторону.
По-вашему, куда я смотрю тогда? Вот интересно.
На 3-й монитор, скорее всего.
У меня он никогда не существует, не существовал. Ну, подождите, я сейчас прямо...
There you go. Danya says, I never had a 3rd monitor, but as Paradox says in the chat, and I was writing in the chat in Levitov Chess yesterday, what does it even matter? I mean, what does it even matter? There's a 3rd monitor. What kind of point does it even make? So let's assume somehow Kramnik managed to prove that Danya has hidden in a closet a 3rd monitor. So what does it even prove? I mean, he already said during a speed run he had switched on, unfortunately, an engine. Now the next thing, so they keep discussing this. And speaking about eyesight, Kramnik doesn't believe. Kramnik doesn't believe that it is that the eyesight he's having on the 2nd monitor, there's the 3rd monitor, and he doesn't believe that Danya's monitor is so huge, or discussing the size of the monitor. You know, I can make a demonstration right now. So I have a 23.8-inch monitor next to me. So this is my laptop. I'm looking straight at you. I have a camera in front of my laptop. Now let me look at the left corner of my external monitor to the right. Let me look to the right corner to the external monitor. Can you make a difference? So this is me looking to the left corner. I'm reading the chat. And this is me looking at the right corner. I'm looking at OBS. Do you see? Is there a difference? So again, look at the eyesight, right? I'm looking at the chat in OBS, and I'm looking at the right on settings. It's the same monitor, and that's it, right? So why are we even discussing this? So I have 23.8 inches, and there was a huge debate about this, and also this is something that, yeah, it just kept coming back. So let's move on. The next thing there was this. I don't remember how long it continues. Let me see, by the way.
Таким
Но
же
это
взглядом...
взгляд... Нет, но эти взгляды... Вот давайте мы можем посмотреть это видео. И вот эти
Можем.
взгляды... Это
Я
не...
воспроизведу.
Вот взгляд вот он взгляд на другой монитор, а вот тот взгляд, это не... Это
Подождите,
не
вы
на
предполагаете
этот монитор.
столько вещей. Во-первых, то, что вы вообще сказали про взгляды, я уже опроверг.
Yeah, and Daniel says you're assuming a lot of things, and he already addressed those concerns. Let's moving on, and then they move on to the next part. Obviously, they talk a lot of things. There was this moment. When was this? I believe it's about here. Second.
Почему?
Определение
Нет,
читера?
определение читерства, да. К чему эта тема и что мы хотим обсудить здесь? Я хочу, чтобы ты
У
высказался.
меня просто была претензия к тому, что Владимир Борисович прозвал меня читером и сказал, что я признался в
Он
читерстве.
не называл.
All right. Now the next thing is Danya gets agitated. He gets a bit angry, and he comes back at Kramnik and says, "Kramnik has accused me that I am cheating."
Тебя читер.
Это неправда.
Подожди, но
Это
если я
неправда.
сейчас
So Kramnik says this never happened.
найду на Твиттере, сейчас,
Пожалуйста.
секундочку.
Now Danya says, I'm gonna find a tweet on Twitter to prove what you wrote.
Пожалуйста.
Ну, окей.
Я никогда не называл тебя читером, Даня. Не надо врать, пожалуйста.
He says, I never called you a cheater, you don't lie. Please don't lie.
Извини, конечно, за жёсткость.
Не называли меня читером, но сейчас я...
Нет, не
Если-
называл.
ну,
Не
Вы
называли,
можете
но сейчас назовем. блин.
Нет, и не буду называть, потому что я в этом не уверен абсолютно. Нет, это не может быть просто по определению. Не надо вот только
Сейчас
это
попробую,
говорить.
секунду.
Не
Как
найдешь.
сделать?
Да, я сразу скажу, не найдешь.
Нет, я
потому что
просто
это не
advanced
может
search
быть.
сделаю.
Этого не может
Ну.
быть просто.
Не, ну
Это
такого не
объяснимо.
было, такого не было.
Right, and then I think Danya mentions this tweet.
Такого не было, Дань. Давайте дальше. Да, следующий. Да.
Ну, окей,
То,
сейчас.
что я говорил. Я могу, пока Даня ищет, могу сказать то, что я говорил. Я говорил, что то, что сделал Даня на этом стриме, это как бы подходит под определение читерства ческома. То есть это подходит четко под определение читерства. Как бы включение движка, независимо от причин. То есть я не говорю, что Даня читерил. Я уверен, что, по крайней мере, уж точно в этом он не читерил. И в этом я уверен. Но это подходит под определение читерства. То есть, ну, это...
It fits the definition of a cheater, but I'm not accusing of cheating. What does that even mean?